Hello everyone, Rebecca Klinger here from State of Fitness. Today we're going to be going over some happy hips. So it's not just for salsa dancers. If you want to get a little bit more mobility into your hips, that also helps reduce some of the low back pain and knee pain that people get as well. So some of our equipment that we're going to be using today to do our trigger point release therapy, we've got a foam roller, we've got a tennis ball, we've got a lacrosse ball for a little bit deeper trigger points, as well as we're going to use this little mini band to do a strength exercise at the end as well. So we'll start off with some trigger point release therapy first. We want to get the trigger points released from the musculature so we're able to get more range of motion, therefore giving you happier hips. So we start out, we get the glutes first. If I do the glutes, kind of move some of this stuff out of your way. If I'm going to do my left glute, I'll sit onto the left glute, place the left ankle onto my right knee, sit with that nice tall posture, and I just start to search around for a tight spot or a trigger point. You'll know it when you hit it. You can also pull this knee up a little bit to give a little more stretch, and that'll help you find some of the trigger points. When you're on a trigger point, try to hold it for at least 10, if not 30 seconds, and you might even feel it kind of release a little bit. Search around all through the glutes, take as much time as you need on each side. Then we'll move on to the IT band. The IT band starts at the top of the hip here, runs all the way down the side of my leg into just below the knee. So you'll almost be in a side plank position here, onto the foam roll. Get onto the elbow with good positioning here, get the elbow underneath the shoulders, we've got that nice long spine. Start up at the top of the hip, you can leave your legs stacked for more pressure into the trigger point, or you can put the foot here for a little more stability and a little bit of help to stay up onto the foam roll. From there, I roll down until I find a trigger point. When I find it, I hold it. You see my bottom leg is staying very straight, toes are pulled up, and I just hold. Continue to work through all the trigger points all the way down to the knee, and then switch to the other side. Next we'll go on to the hamstring. The hamstring is the back of the thigh. So if I come here, I get onto the very end of the foam roll, and depending on your flexibility, you might be able to sit right up on top like this. I may roll to the outside, I might get to the middle, or to the inside. From there, I just start working my way down from my hip, down the back of the thigh, towards the knee. Most people have their trigger points a little higher up, towards the bottom of the pelvis. Some of you will have it more in the belly or the middle part of the muscle. That's okay. Again, hold that nice posture, and just breathe. Try to relax and breathe to let that trigger point release. Next, you're going to go into the adductor. The adductor is the inner thigh. If I've got the foam roller placed kind of vertical to my spine, with a bent knee, I start with it high up into the groin. From here, I'm almost in a plank position. Be careful not to let the low back arch. You want to hold your abdominals up to not let the low back hyperextend and get hurt. So you're going to hold that plank position, again, searching for those trigger points, and just hold and breathe. I work it all the way out to the end by my knee. Some of you may have that nasty little trigger point just above the knee, in which case when you're here, you can bend and straighten and bend the knee a little bit. This will help work out that nasty little trigger point even more for you. From there, you're going to go into the quadriceps. The quadriceps are the front part of the thigh. If I'm here, again on the edge of the foam roll, I like to get one quadricep done at a time so I can get the outside and the middle as well as the inside part of the quadriceps. If I start here, right at the top of my hip again, turn sideways so you can see that a little bit more. The foam roll is right at the top of my hip, here, and I just keep working my way down towards my knee. Again, don't let the low back arch. Hold those abdominals up. Use your bracing in your upper body to give you a little better position, and hold those trigger points. I get to the outside part of the quadriceps, the middle part, and you can even turn the toes out a little bit to get the inside part of the quadricep. From there, I go into the low back, or the quadratus lumborum. Where I'm really targeting is from the bottom of the rib cage to the top of the hip, right in this area here. What I don't want you to do is put the ball right on the spine. You want to avoid direct contact on the spinal column itself. With the two different balls, the tennis ball will be a little softer, it'll be a little less intense, so if your trigger points are pretty intense for you, you can use a little bit easier ball. Lacrosse ball is going to be harder, it's going to be a little firmer. I take the lacrosse ball right up to the wall, and I place it anywhere from the bottom of the rib cage to the top of the hip, right into the low back. Walk my feet forward just a little bit, tuck my pelvis under, and really push in and find those trigger points. I can bend and straighten my knees accordingly to find where the trigger points are. Again, when I find it, I hold it. Keep that nice posture, really breathe. Nice even inhales and exhales when you're doing your trigger point therapy. The short choppy breaths will lead to you wanting to hold on and restrict that tightness even more. Just breathe. So once we have our trigger point release therapy completed, we're going to go on to the FMR, okay? That's your functional manual reaction. You can utilize a table. It can be a different height. It doesn't have to necessarily be this height. We'll have 5 different exercises we're going to do on here. Now what we're moving into is actual mobility of the hip joint itself. The hip is a very mobile joint, being a ball and socket joint, but there's a lot of thick capsular tissue around it as well as ligaments, so we don't dislocate the hip. But we don't want it to be over-restricted and over-tight. That leads to, again, some of the low back issues that we have as well as knee issues. So our first one, we place the leg right out in front of us. It kind of targets the back part of the leg again into the hamstring. I face the table, toes are pointing straight forward. I have that nice tall posture. From here, I hinge forward to where I can, and I think of pushing the thigh down to the floor. You'll feel that nice stretch back here. Now from here, I'm going to take my hips side to side. So I kind of have this up and down motion of my pelvis going like this, side to side with my pelvis. I'm then going to move into circles, so now I just kind of grind the hips around in one circle. Then I will go in the opposite direction. So then I come back here. Again, I'm just really trying to feel that ball and socket get more mobile. Then from here, I tuck and tilt, so I take my pelvis forward and back, forward and back. Just working in through that hip capsule, loosening that up. Then from there, I can move into the adductor. I simply open up. My foot is now facing forward, toes are straight up. Again, that nice tall posture. If you do have more flexibility, bend your standing leg. Get down into here. Now you can feel the stretch through that adductor or inner thigh. That ball that's in that ball and socket joint, again, that's what we're trying to move. We're trying to move the ball inside the socket. So from here, I'm going to tuck and tilt my pelvis forward and back, forward and back. Then I will go in circles, so grind it around in one direction. Then take it back in the opposite direction. Then I will go side to side with my pelvis. So you see the pelvis kind of going side to side. It's almost up and down kind of motion with the pelvis. Next we'll go on to the hip flexor, the front part of the thigh. I can leave my foot right on the table, turn away from the table. Now my foot is facing the opposite direction, have nice tall posture. I try to have this leg that's on the table, the thigh behind the standing thigh. So I don't want them necessarily to be here. I want to be a little forward so I can get the stretch through the hip flexor. Lifting the sternum up tall, try not to arch the low back. Keep that pelvis neutral, really tuck the tailbone under and push the hip forward. Now you'll feel the stretch to the front. You may even get a stretch down the front of the thigh, and that's okay. From here, nice tall posture, you're going to take the hips side to side. So kind of get that up and down action again of the pelvis. Next you'll go circles. This is a difficult position to do circles in, but you just try to grind that pelvis around into the circles. Then you'll go in the opposite direction again, circles. Then you'll have, if you have your left leg back, you can take one or both arms up into the air. You can do just the left arm, or you can put both arms up in the air. Nice big reach, and you pulse the hands back as you push the hip forward. So I get that pulse, 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 pulse. And that gets the hip flexor. Now we'll go on to generally a tighter spot for a lot of people is in the piriformis and into the glutes. I come back to the table and face the table again. Put my foot up on the table, face directly in, and try to put the knee down towards the table. Depending on your flexibility, the knee may or may not get to the table. It's okay if it doesn't. Just means we're going to improve your flexibility a little bit more. Once I'm here, I've got that nice long tall spine, hinge forward. Now notice that my knee is going to be in line with my hip, so I don't want my foot to be way out to the side. I want that leg, the lower leg, to be right in front of my body. I'm going to hinge forward to where I feel a stretch. Now I tuck and tilt the pelvis. Tuck it under, tilt it back. Tuck, tilt, tuck, tilt. From there, I will go side to side with my pelvis, or get that up and down kind of action. Then I will go in circles, kind of grind it around into little circles. And we'll go back in the opposite direction. Last but not least, we're going to work the hip into an internal rotation position. Now, this is oftentimes a range of motion that gets forgotten or left out, is internal rotation of the hip. We're always thinking of stretching the piriformis and the glutes into the external rotation. We also want to be careful that we're getting the internal rotation as well, to get good balance through our hips. The leg will go out to the side, here. The leg and my body are flush with one another. Try not to have the knee too far forward. The knee back foot is flexed, body's up nice and tall. Depending on your flexibility, you might find that yourself has got a little sideward lean. If you're a little tighter through here, that's okay. You're eventually going to work yourself up to standing upright. If you have even more flexibility, you might bend that knee a little bit more. It gives you a little more stretch into that internal hip rotation. From here, I tuck and tilt the pelvis again. This one is going to probably have the least amount of motion, just because of the position of the hip. So we tuck and tilt forward and back. Then side to side, you can see there's not a ton of movement here, and that's normal. Then you'll go into circles. Round in circles in one direction, and round in circles into the other direction. Once you have all those done, you can repeat all these on the other side. Okay? In terms of repetition, kind of go how it feels. Some people need 3 or 5 repetitions. Some people may see that they need 5, 7, 10, or even more. It may depend on the day, too, or what time of day. So just listen to your body. If you need a little bit more or don't need as many, that's okay. Now once we've done the trigger point therapy to release some of the musculature from the fascia, and we've done our joint mobilization in terms of the FMR, now we're going to do some activities that just actively work on that range of motion. So laying back down on your back, get these things out of our way here. I'm going to do a pelvic tuck and tilt. My feet will be flat on the floor. My feet, knees, and hip joints are lined up as I lie back. Once I'm here, I place my hands on my hips so I can feel my pelvis move. Keep that nice long spine. Now I'm going to tuck and I'm going to tilt. So I think of trying to tuck my tail between my legs if I did have a tail. So I go very flat backed. When I go here and I tilt, I actually get a gap underneath my spine. You want to feel smooth motion in the tuck, smooth motion into the tilt. Very smooth back and forth. Tuck and tilt. Tuck and tilt. Next you'll go on to clamshell. We've got our little mini band here, and any kind of little band or tubing will work. I like these little mini bands. It's about the right size, and they come in various tensions. So start off with a lighter tension. You may even do this without any tension. If you don't have great range of motion, I would go without the band. But I just wanted you to see what it looks like with the band. If I lie on my side, it's as if my back side of my body is up against a wall. My shoulders are stacked, my hips are stacked, as are my feet. I usually bring that top foot a little forward so when I open it doesn't fall off the back of my leg here. So I've got this nice posture. I usually rest my head on my arm here so my cervical spine stays in neutral position. From here, working through my hip, I open, so that's how I look like a little clam. And then smoothly close. Smoothly open, smoothly close. Open and close. Now if your knee is not getting all the way back up and down so it's perpendicular to the floor, you may take the band off and just do the exercise that way. Next we have prone figure 4, internal hip rotation. So I'll lay on my stomach, that's what prone means. I'm going to have the band down on my foot of the one that's going, and the other one stays at my knee. Once I lay down, I rest my chin right on my hands here. Keep both frontal hip bones flat to the floor. From here, I internally rotate the hip. That will bring my foot out. Your goal is to really internally rotate the hip through here. So I internally rotate that hip, and it's back down. And again, you would just repeat that movement to the other side. Last but not least, toe touch squats. Now we want to get up on our feet, because that's how we typically function, and work some hip mobility. Toe touch squats is a great way to do that. If I start with my feet a little bit wider than hip width apart, toes are turned out slightly. From here, I'll have both arms up in the air. I hinge down, grab my ankles, take my bottom down towards the floor as I lift my chest. Don't kind of slop and slouch down at the bottom. You should be holding yourself. Don't rest into the knees. It's not healthy for it. Hold yourself through the musculature of your legs and your glutes and in your core. Chest is up very tall. My elbows are inside of my knees. That helps open up the hips a little more. One arm will go up overhead straight, the other arm as well, and then you come all the way up. You'll see not everyone will be able to get their arms straight up overhead, and that's okay. Go to the motion in which you can. I've recently had a little shoulder surgery, so I've got a little bit of a range of motion issue at the moment. Okay? So once I'm up, hinge down, grab my ankles, my rear end is down, my chest is high, put one arm up, the other arm up, push through the thighs and glutes. As I continue to do these, I alternate which arm goes first. Don't always have the same arm go first each time. If you're here at State of Fitness with us, in that stretch room that's right by the service desk, there's a little poster. On that little poster, everything is listed for you just to help guide you through all those if you don't want to bring in the video. So if you watch it and brush up on some of the technique on the video, there'll be this little poster right inside there so you can get these done at State of Fitness. I hope you have happy hips and have a happy day. Thank you.